After 30 years of marriage, I thought I'd held our family together until the day I found out my husband had a 31-year-old secret son. I said nothing. I quietly gathered the evidence and waited. At the family gathering, I exposed everything. They spent decades putting on a show. I only needed 1 minute to bring the whole performance crashing down. My name is Susan Mitchell. I'm a grandmother, a mother, and today I turned 60. Coincidentally, it's also the first day of 3rd grade for my grandson Ethan. That evening, Ethan came home from school with chocolate smeared on his face, eyes bright with excitement. My son David trailed behind him, carrying a blue bakery box. I'd spent the entire afternoon in the kitchen, the heat of the oven warming my face as I prepared a feast. Golden roast chicken, creamy mashed potatoes, baked mac and cheese with a perfect crust, a fresh garden salad. The smell filled the house. Every dish was something they all loved. Once my husband Robert and my daughter-in-law Jennifer got home from work, the whole family sat around the dining table. Jennifer's perfect makeup didn't hide the tired lines around her eyes as she smiled at the spread. She turned to Ethan. "You'd better thank Grandma," she said with practiced cheerfulness. "She made all this just for your back-to-school celebration." Robert's face darkened like a storm cloud rolling in. He frowned and snapped at me, his voice sharp as a knife. "You cooked all this and didn't even think to get some wine?" My hands froze on the tablecloth. 30 years of this, and it still stings every time. David quickly stepped between us. "Dad, let's not start tonight, okay?" He placed the cake in the center of the table, his smile tight at the edges. "Come on, let's do cake and candles first." I pulled back the lid of the box, and my heart dropped. The cake read, "Congratulations, Ethan," in bright blue letters. Nothing else. No "Happy Birthday, Susan." No 60 years young. Nothing. Just those 2 words from my grandson. 3 days ago, I had reminded David, my birthday is the same day as Ethan starts 3rd grade. Maybe this year we could celebrate together. He had nodded, barely looking up from his phone. "Mom, what are you doing?" "Where's the lighter?" David's voice broke through my thoughts. "Help me find it so Ethan can make a wish." Robert slammed his hand on the table, making the silverware jump. "Did you go deaf? He asked you to grab the lighter. What are you standing there for?" I felt something crack inside me, like ice breaking on a frozen lake. I looked at my family, really looked at them. Robert with his permanent scowl. David checking his phone under the table. Jennifer's plastic smile. Ethan already reaching for the cake with greedy fingers. "David," I said quietly, aside from Ethan's big day, "do you remember what else today is?" Before we get into what happened next, I want you to ask yourself something. Have you ever been invisible in your own life? Have you ever given so much that nothing remained for yourself? Stay with me, because sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is choose ourselves. Subscribe to hear stories that might change how you see your own life. Now, back to the moment when everything changed. Dinner had barely started when Ethan knocked his fork to the floor with a clatter. "Grandma," he shouted, his voice piercing the air. "I dropped my fork. Go get me another one." For the first time in my life, I didn't jump up. I stayed seated, feeling the weight lift from my shoulders as I said, "Ethan, you can do that yourself." The silence that followed was deafening. Ethan's face turned red as he kicked his mother's chair. "Mom, Grandma won't get my fork." Jennifer touched my arm with cold fingers. "Susan," she said with that sugary voice that never reached her eyes, "where do you keep the extra silverware?" Robert's face darkened to a dangerous shade of purple. "Go get him a fork now." I stood up slowly, feeling every one of my 60 years. But instead of heading to the kitchen, I walked straight to my bedroom. I pulled out my suitcase, the one I'd bought in secret last month, and began filling it with clothes. I added my bank statements, the evidence of every dollar I'd saved from my food stall at the farmer's market. For 30 years, Robert's paychecks vanished at poker games while I secretly built our safety net. For 30 years, I swallowed my pride when his drunken fists shattered another lamp, another plate, another piece of my soul. I was raised to believe divorce meant failure, that a good woman endures, that children need both parents under one roof, even if that roof trembles with screams. But how many 30 years does a person get in a lifetime? I returned to the dining room, suitcase wheels clicking against the floor like a ticking clock. Ethan had a new fork. Jennifer was cutting his cake. Robert was gulping whiskey from a glass. A fresh bottle David must have just bought him. My husband, who transforms into a monster with alcohol. My son, who enables him. My daughter-in-law, who pretends not to see. My grandson, already learning that women exist to serve. I stood at the head of the table, feeling strangely calm. I want a divorce, I said, my voice steady for the first time in years. I've had enough of this life. The room froze. Forks stopped midway to mouths. The clock on the wall seemed to hold its breath. Robert recovered first, face contorting with rage. Have you lost your mind? He roared. You're nearly 70, and you want a divorce now? David knocked over his chair as he stood. Mom, what are you talking about? We're all just trying to have a nice dinner. Why do you always have to ruin everything? I smiled. Not the placating smile they were used to, but something new and dangerous. I'll be staying at a hotel tonight. Tomorrow, you're coming with me to sign the divorce papers, Robert. I'm not agreeing to this, he sputtered, spittle flying. What will people think? David stepped forward, hands raised like he was calming a child. Mom, don't be dramatic. I'll stay tonight and watch Dad. Whatever's bothering you, we'll fix it. Just don't bring up divorce. I looked at my son, really looked at him. David, tell me something. What day is today? His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing came out. I nodded slowly. That's what I thought. You see, I'm done pretending it doesn't hurt. I'm done being the ghost in my own life. At 60, with a terminal diagnosis giving me 6 months to live, I finally realized, if I don't live for myself now, when will I ever? I left them behind without another word, dragging my suitcase toward the door. That's when Jennifer suddenly stepped in front of me, pulling Ethan with her like a human shield. Susan, come on, she said gently, her voice soft and polished as ever, a pleasant smile still pinned to her lips. We're family. Every family has its little rough patches. Why don't we just sit down and talk things through? Then she leaned in close, her voice dropping to a whisper by my ear. Didn't we agree not to bring up divorce again? I immediately stepped back, putting distance between us. Well, I've changed my mind. Is that a problem? After I divorce Robert, I don't want any of you contacting me again. This time I meant it. I was done. I wasn't just leaving Robert. I was cutting ties with every last one of them. What do you mean, none of us? David's voice rang out as he jumped up, rushing over to block the doorway. Mom, what the hell is going on? What do you mean you changed your mind? Changed your mind about what? Exactly what it sounds like, I said calmly. If you're struggling to understand, maybe your wife can explain it to you. Now step aside. I'm leaving. I nudged the suitcase forward, signaling them to move. Susan, you can't just walk out. Jennifer suddenly grabbed me, clutching my arm as tears began to stream down her face like a perfectly timed performance. What about Ethan? Who's going to look after him now? What about his dinners? Are you really okay with him eating fast food every night? What if he gets sick? Don't you care? He's your grandson, the one you raised, your precious little boy. Can you really walk away from him? Her words were carefully chosen, delivered with the perfect mix of emotion and manipulation. But to me, it was all absurd. So absurd I couldn't help but laugh coldly. Seeing that, Jennifer seemed to think she'd struck a chord. She kept going, her voice sweet and coaxing. You care about him, don't you, Susan? And honestly, David and I need you. We really do. If it weren't for you keeping the house in order, taking care of Ethan, handling everything behind the scenes, well, let's be honest, David's not exactly a natural homemaker. She glanced over at David with a smile, then leaned in again, whispering, You know, every time my mom visits, she always praises David for being such a responsible husband. She tells me I married the right man. She chuckled softly. Of course, she doesn't know that it's all you. You're the one holding everything together. You've given David a good reputation, and I know that must feel good, right? When people praise him, deep down they're really praising you. And besides, have you said enough? I cut her off, my voice sharp and icy. Can you just shut up already? Jennifer froze, stunned, like she was seeing a different person for the first time. What are you staring at? I snapped. Never seen me angry before? What do you mean, what about Ethan? Isn't he your son? Isn't it your responsibility to raise him? And you can't live without me? You're both in your 30s. What? Still not weaned? Now get your hands off me. I've watched you play this perfect daughter-in-law act for years. Aren't you tired? Because I sure as hell am. Starting today, I'm done. I'm no one's mother, no one's grandmother, and definitely no one's wife. From now on, I live for me. Move! When she still didn't let go, I shoved her aside. Ethan saw me push his mom and immediately lunged forward, giving me a hard shove in return. Grandma, how dare you touch my mom? Do it again and see what happens. David rushed in to shield Jennifer, then turned on me, his voice shaking with rage. Mom, you've crossed the line. You need to apologize to my wife. Robert stood up too, joining the chorus of outrage. The three of them closed in, yelling, accusing, crying. Chaos filled the room like an explosion, and yet somehow I still hadn't expected it to hurt this much. I'd always known what kind of people they were deep down, but seeing them bare their true faces like this, seeing just how quickly love could turn into judgment and blame, still brought tears to my eyes. These were the people I had spent my whole life caring for. All I wanted was to live for myself, just once. Why did that have to be so hard? If you won't let me walk away in peace, then fine. No one gets to walk away untouched. You like putting on a show? Then I'll give you one. Let's see how well you all perform when every ugly secret is dragged into the light. All right, everyone calm down. I'll apologize, I said. I turned toward Jennifer and gave a small, polite bow. I'm sorry, Jennifer. I shouldn't have pushed you. I apologize for my behavior. She froze, clearly thrown off by my sudden shift, but she recovered quickly, casting a quick glance at David before offering me a teary smile. It's okay. I'm not upset. I looked at David and Ethan, my tone even. What do you think? Was my apology good enough? Do I deserve forgiveness? Ethan gave a small nod, saying nothing. David looked awkward. Mom, it's just an apology. No need to be so formal. I nodded slightly. So then, would you agree when someone does something wrong, they should apologize? Ethan nodded again. David hesitated this time. His eyes flicked toward Jennifer as if searching for a cue before finally nodding. Yeah, of course. If you do something wrong, you should apologize. Good. I let out a cold laugh. That's all I needed to hear. I grabbed my suitcase and shoved it aside near the door, then turned and calmly walked back into the living room. I pulled a chair over and sat down right in the center of the chaos. Now, I said coolly, let's talk about your father, David. David frowned, confused. Jennifer's expression shifted instantly, nervous and guarded. Robert looked like someone had yanked the floor out from under him. Did you know, I said, cutting straight to the point, your father has another family? The words landed like a hammer. Robert shot up from his seat, grabbing my arm in a panic. His voice was loud, angry and trembling. What the hell are you talking about? Are you out of your mind, saying this in front of the kids? Dad, let her finish, David said firmly, stepping between us, surprisingly taking my side for once. David, she's making things up. Robert's face turned red. You know what kind of man I am. I yanked my arm free and stepped back. Am I making it up? Asked Jennifer. She was with me when I found out. You wanted to be a bystander. Not tonight. Now you're part of the story, too. All eyes turned to Jennifer. Well, I asked. Tell them. Am I lying? Silence crashed over the room. For the first time all night, everything was still. Jennifer stared at the floor. Seconds ticked by like hours before she finally mumbled, barely audible. I don't know. Maybe Susan was just upset and said something she didn't mean. Robert exhaled in relief. Of course. I hadn't expected her to tell the truth anyway. I let out a dry, bitter laugh and continued. Her name is Laura. She lives at 113B, Lincoln Street, apartment 302. That's your father's other home. If you don't believe me, go knock on the door yourself. I paused, then added casually, oh, and be polite when you do. The one who opens the door might be your brother. He's 31, just a year older than you. He's married, has a little daughter. So that means, besides Ethan, your father also has a granddaughter. That last line hit like a grenade. Robert's face went sheet white. Jennifer's panic was impossible to hide. They never imagined I'd know this much, not just the affair, but the address, the age, even the child. And they certainly didn't expect me to burn down their perfect little stage in one blow. None of this would have come to light without Carol Anderson, my so-called best friend. She was the one who first stumbled upon Robert with another woman. She followed them discreetly, did her own little investigation, and within a few days sent me a neat little file complete with photos, the woman's background, and even the exact address of their little love nest. But what Carol didn't know was that the day before she sent me that file, I had already seen it with my own eyes. That afternoon, I was at the grocery store, pushing a cart overflowing with household essentials. I was hot, sweaty, and aching from lugging everything around, just waiting my turn at the checkout line when I saw him, Robert. There he was, not 20 feet away, walking alongside a woman about my age. He was carrying several large shopping bags, following closely behind her like a doting husband. She had silver-gray hair, sleek and well-kept. Her skin was smooth, clearly well cared for. She wore elegant clothes, walked with poise. Everything about her screamed comfort, luxury, a life without strain. In her other hand, she held a little girl's hand, probably the same age as Ethan. The girl bounced along cheerfully ahead of them, giggling and looking back now and then. "Grandma," she called out sweetly to the woman. Then she turned toward Robert, beaming. "Grandpa, a happy family. Picture perfect. Warm. Wholesome. Idyllic. Me." I was sweating through my shirt, dragging a heavy cart, my fingers swollen and sore from carrying everything on my own. I stood frozen in place, staring at my husband as he basked in domestic bliss with another family. His face was soft, gentle in a way I hadn't seen in decades. The man who barely spoke to me at home, who treated our family like an obligation, was now playing the role of the devoted husband, the caring father, the loving grandfather. And for what? My hands went numb. The cart slipped from my grasp and clattered to the floor. Apples and oranges rolled everywhere. I snapped. I stormed toward him, fire boiling in my veins. "Robert!" I roared, grabbing him by the collar. He looked like he'd seen a ghost, completely pale, stunned, speechless. His new little family froze in place. The girl shrank behind the woman, clearly frightened, while the woman clutched Robert's arm, trying to pull him away. But I wasn't letting him go. Years of silent resentment erupted in that one moment. I shoved him hard. "What the hell is this?" I shouted. "What have you been doing all these years? Where the hell has our money gone? You owe me an answer." People stopped and stared. Shoppers paused their carts, whispering behind their hands. Some even started recording on their phones. I didn't care, not anymore. All those years I swallowed my pride, bit my tongue, told myself to keep the peace. For what? To be replaced like some worn-out appliance? To watch him live the life he denied me? I wasn't going to be silent anymore. I was going to make sure the truth came out, and I didn't care who saw it. We were still arguing in the middle of a store when, by some cruel twist of timing, Jennifer showed up after work and spotted the entire scene unfolding. She rushed over, trying to pull me away, trying to calm me down. But it was too late. The curtain had already fallen. There was no taking it back. The truth was out, and no one could pretend anymore. That night, we sat in the living room, and I finally learned the whole truth. It turned out that the year I was pregnant with David, Robert had already started seeing Laura. It turned out every time he vanished for a few days after drinking, he wasn't out entertaining clients like he claimed. He was simply going back to their home. It turned out most of the money he earned over the years didn't go into this household at all. It went into building a life with them. As I listened to revelation after revelation, each, it turned out, felt more absurd than the last. But the most laughable part? Laura knew about me from the very beginning. She knew Robert and I were together, knew we were planning to get married. She just didn't care. And what's worse, during our conversation, she actually tried to advise me, told me not to make a fuss, said she was thinking of our family. She said she didn't want Robert, at his age, to end up a lonely old man in a broken home. And then, with a straight face, she told me she was fine staying in the background, said she didn't mind if I remained the legal wife as long as she could continue being his second family. She truly believed that was some kind of generous compromise, as if she were standing on some moral high ground, offering me scraps of dignity she thought I should be grateful for. I stared at her as her lips kept moving, and all I could think was, how delusional do you have to be to think you have the right to lecture me? I turned to Robert, my voice calm and cold. Let's get a divorce. But before he could respond, Jennifer jumped in again, stepping between us like a mediator. Susan, take a breath, please. Think about David. If this gets out, if people find out you're divorcing over something like this, what will the neighbors say? I almost laughed out loud. Of course they care more about appearances than about me. And I should have known better. My son and his wife were never going to stand on my side. I know exactly what you mean, I said quietly. But at some point, a person has to decide if they want to live without dignity. Jennifer pressed on. Just pretend it never happened, all right? Men make mistakes. It's how they are. You and Robert can keep up appearances for David's sake. You can still live your life. And after thinking it over, after listening to her endless persuasion, I agreed. I swallowed my disgust and made an agreement with Robert. We would remain married in name only. No more pretending in private, just appearances for the sake of the kids. But in truth, our marriage had died long ago. I thought I could hold it all in. One last sacrifice. One last compromise. But then my body began to falter. I went to the hospital alone, feeling a strange discomfort I couldn't ignore. And that's when I got the diagnosis, cancer. That's what all my silence and endurance bought me. Disease. Why should I be the one to pay for his sins? Why should I keep breaking myself just to protect the fragile pride of a family that never saw me? To hell with silence. To hell with sacrifice. To hell with pretending everything's fine. I'm done shrinking myself to make others comfortable. I'm done swallowing poison and calling it peace. Let's go, David, I said calmly that night at dinner. Let's go see for ourselves. See if I'm really just making things up. No sooner had the words left my mouth than David grabbed Robert by the arm and stormed out the door. I followed them slowly and steadily, my suitcase wheels clicking softly on the pavement behind me. Jennifer hesitated for a moment, then finally pulled Ethan along and trailed behind us. According to the documents Carol had given me, they'd only moved in earlier this year. The house was newly bought with money Robert had scraped together by secretly selling off his late parents' old home and several plots of land from his hometown. When we reached the house, everything I'd said was confirmed. And that's when David snapped. His emotions erupted like a volcano, years of suppressed pain, confusion, and bitterness finally spilling out. He turned to Robert and started yelling, his voice shaking with rage. He wasn't just angry about today. He was bleeding from every wound Robert had ever left on him. He recalled things from childhood, one memory after another. Like the time in elementary school when he reached for a piece of roast chicken at the dinner table, only to be barked at by a drunken Robert. Go ask your mother. Or the time in middle school when he didn't have enough for lunch and dared to ask Robert for help, only to hear again, ask your mom. Or that moment during his most confused, aching teenage years, when he finally gathered the courage to ask his father about life, about purpose, only to be waved off with, "Talk to your mom. I don't have time for your nonsense." His voice cracked with emotion, tears welling in his eyes as he shouted, "All this time, I thought maybe Mom and I just weren't good enough. That maybe if we tried harder, you'd finally love us. But now I know you never meant to love us. You already gave all of that to someone else. You gave your time, your money, your heart to a different woman, a different family." And then, with all that fury still burning in him, David lunged. He tried to attack Laura. Robert instinctively stepped in to protect her, and the two of them, father and son, began to fight right there on the front lawn. The neighbors came out. People watched from their windows. Someone must have called the cops, because minutes later, sirens pulled up and two officers stepped in, breaking up the fight and hauling both Robert and David into the back of a squad car. Just before they shut the door, David turned to me, face twisted with tears and fury, and shouted, "You're so selfish, Mom. You blew this whole thing up just because you wanted a divorce. I know Dad wasn't great, but you two were together for decades. Couldn't you just keep it together a little longer? You had to burn everything down. For what? Are you happy now? This was supposed to be a celebration, a party for Ethan. Now it's a goddamn circus. Are you proud of yourself?" Robert, from the other side of the car, growled through gritted teeth. "You got what you wanted, didn't you? You had to ruin everything. I had it all under control. Everything was fine until you ripped the curtain down. You think exposing me changes anything? What the hell do you gain from this? Then Jennifer stepped in, her voice sharp and cold. Susan, I told you not to drag this out. You had to go and make it public. Now the whole neighborhood's talking. And those properties he sold? We could have worked something out, gotten a bit of it back. But now it's all gone. She glanced around bitterly. That land's being redeveloped next year. There's a resort going in. The payout was going to be huge. But thanks to your little drama, we'll never see a dime of it. You just had to blow everything up. What the hell were you trying to prove? One by one, they all took turns blaming me, from their own angles, for their own reasons. And yet somehow, I felt perfectly calm. Then Ethan, standing off to the side, suddenly shouted, "But it was Grandpa who messed up. Why is everyone yelling at Grandma? Didn't you say that if someone does something wrong, they should apologize?" My heart clenched for a moment, but Jennifer quickly pulled him into her arms, bent down, and whispered something in his ear. When Ethan looked up again, his eyes had changed, cold, distant, unfamiliar. And I understood. I didn't say another word. I turned away from that house and walked off. Back home, I picked up my suitcase, already packed, and without so much as a glance behind me, I stepped out of the door. Out of that house, out of that life, out of that place that no longer, and never truly belonged to me. After that day, I cut ties with my so-called family for good. The first few nights, I woke up startled, heart racing from old habits and restless dreams. But over time, I found peace. After all, this was exactly what I wanted, to escape everything and finally live for myself. The pain, it wasn't nearly as unbearable as I once feared. I splashed my face with cold water, dried it with a towel, and looked into the mirror. Wrinkled skin, silver hair, tired eyes. Still, I smiled at my reflection. Then I picked up my phone and called Carol. I asked if she still planned to take that trip she'd mentioned this month. Carol has been my dearest friend for years. We used to run stalls together at the local market back in the day. She had just lost her husband, and I was living like I didn't have one. We leaned on each other through everything, raising our sons, managing life, and holding each other up when no one else did. A few years ago, her son Mark's business took off. He hired a housekeeper to help around the house, and Carol finally started enjoying life, traveling, exploring the world. She'd invited me along so many times, but I always had some excuse. I was always too busy with family. But now I was free. When I called, she was thrilled. "What changed?" she laughed. "I'm divorced," I told her. Figured it's time I got out and cleared my head. She asked where I was staying, and I gave her the name of the hotel I checked into. "I'll be there soon," she said. "Wait for me." What I didn't expect was that Carol wouldn't come alone. She brought Mark and his wife Emily with her. Before I could object, they packed up my things and whisked me away to their house. "Just stay with us for a while," Carol insisted, brushing off my protests. "Don't overthink it." Emily, seeing how uncomfortable I looked, smiled gently and said, "You've done so much for us when our daughter was little. You were always there to help. This is just us returning the kindness. Please think of me as your son," Mark added earnestly. "If it weren't for you helping us when we were struggling, my mom and I might have ended up on the streets." Their words made my throat tighten. The truth was, they were giving me far too much credit. All I'd ever done was help Carol when she was sick, babysit a few times, and lend them a little money when they needed it. Just the kind of things close friends do for one another. My fingers brushed lightly against the pearl necklace around my neck, Mark's birthday gift to me this year. In fact, he'd never missed a single birthday from the moment he started working. He brought me something every year. At first, it was small trinkets, simple but thoughtful. Later, it was jewelry, clothing, even little surprises that made me feel seen. I used to hesitate, reluctant to accept anything, but he'd always say, "It's from all of us, a little thank you." So I started returning the gesture, gifts for Carol, a small token here and there. It made me feel better, like I was keeping the balance. But how do you repay kindness like theirs? How do you ever repay love that deep? All I ever offered was a helping hand, but they gave me back something far more precious. Carol just laughed and said, "That's what family does. You don't need a reason to care." Later, she asked Mark to book us a 15-day trip, and she was right. When your heart is heavy, a change of scenery really does help. With each passing day, I felt lighter. My body felt stronger, my mind clearer. When we returned, I found a small apartment and signed a lease. I knew my time was limited. I didn't want to die in someone else's home. I never told Carol about the cancer. I just said I needed some quiet time alone. They didn't try to stop me, but they made me promise to call them if I ever needed anything. Then I began doing all the things I'd once dreamed about but never dared to try. And the first thing I did? I signed up for a dance class. I'd loved dancing since I was a child, but we couldn't afford lessons back then. This time, I chose something bold. Hip-hop, a class full of 20-somethings, just to give something joyful to that little girl in me who once danced barefoot in the kitchen, dreaming. I didn't care what the young people thought. I didn't care if they snickered behind my back about how awkward I looked. I didn't care about anything except how I felt. Because this time, I was living for me. I practiced every day. Again and again, I repeated every move, every beat, every step. I knew I'd get better. I knew even if time was running out, I would dance one perfect routine just for myself. Like my life. Messy, imperfect, painful, but still mine. And this time, I would be the one to write the final chapter. As long as I didn't give up on myself, as long as I danced with joy and honesty, my life wouldn't have been in vain. And slowly, the rhythm grew easier, my body lighter, my moves sharper. The same kids who once giggled at me, now they call me the cool lady. Time slipped by. 6 months passed in the blink of an eye. That morning, I rose early and headed to a small photography studio downtown. I had a portrait taken, my final one. Next, I went to a funeral service company and scheduled everything for my own farewell. I chose a burial at sea. I wanted my ashes to drift with the currents, to roam freely across the oceans, reaching the corners of the world I never had the chance to see. Even if only in spirit, I'd travel, floating through places I once dreamed of, whispering through cities and landscapes I'd never touched in life. Then I returned to my dance class. I asked my instructor for a favor, to help me record one full dance performance. She agreed without hesitation. She told me she had an online account where she uploaded videos, a platform where, as long as no one deletes it, the video would live there forever. She even helped me set up a social media profile, and under her guidance, I uploaded the video myself. I wanted to leave something behind, a trace of my existence, a flicker of movement, a moment of joy that told the world I was here. The doctor said I had 6 months left, and after the divorce, I'd done everything I ever wanted to do. I truly thought I was ready for death. I had no regrets left. I'd made peace with the end. But then death didn't come. 1 day passed, then 10, then 30. 2 months rolled by, and I was still alive. The funeral company began calling me regularly to check in. At first, their tone was gentle and sympathetic, the way you'd speak to someone whose time was slipping away, polite, delicate, respectful. Then came the subtle shift. Their voices grew impatient, awkward. Eventually, they didn't even try to hide their amusement. "Ma'am," one of them chuckled during a call, "you're sounding pretty spry over there." I didn't bother hiding my irritation and snapped back a few words. The man just laughed. With that kind of energy, I'd say you've got a long road ahead. And then he hung up. And for the first time in a long time, I laughed too. 3 months after the doctor's predicted death date, something unexpected happened. I went viral in our town's senior community. It all started with that dance video I uploaded. I thought it would just be a quiet keepsake, a final memento for myself. I didn't know the platform would actually promote the video to other users. But apparently it did. People watched it, shared it, liked it. Before I knew it, my little clip had become a local hit. Suddenly, people started recognizing me on the street, at the supermarket, the bank, the pharmacy. Wherever I went, someone would gasp and say, "Hey, isn't that the grandma who does hip-hop?" Then they'd gather around me, showering compliments. How youthful I looked, how smooth my moves were, how even the younger folks weren't half as energetic. After one such encounter, still buzzing with their praise, I got a phone call. It was Robert. "Hey," he said casually, "when are you coming home? David wants to take you out for dinner. Ethan's been saying he misses you." I looked at the screen, seeing the names of a son and grandson who hadn't bothered to contact me in months. I gave a faint smile. "Oh, I replied. So you and David patched things up? Robert chuckled. Jennifer thought we should all sit down and talk things through. I let out a soft hum. Well, that's wonderful. I wish you all the happiness in the world. And I hung up. Right after, I sent him a text. Unless it's about divorce, don't contact me again. But it was like the man had lost his mind. The next day, he started sending me messages constantly. Roses, sweet nothings, flirty little quotes. I didn't reply to a single one. A few days later, he called again. His tone was syrupy, overly polite, asking about how I'd been. Then mid-conversation, he suddenly asked, "Hey, by the way, sounds like you're doing pretty well for yourself now, huh?" That was all I needed to hear. I didn't even dignify it with a response. Just hung up. Later that afternoon, Carol called me out of the blue. "We need to meet," she said. "No, in person." I met her at a local cafe. She was already seated when I arrived, her expression serious. The moment I sat down, she slid her phone across the table. "Susan," she said grimly, "you need to see this." Turns out Robert's so-called true love, Laura, had uploaded a video online publicly slandering me. In the clip, she painted me as some cold, heartless old hag. Said I was selfish and cruel. Said I'd abandoned my husband and grandson just to go gallivanting around like some teenager. That I didn't care if anyone lived or died. Carol hit play, jaw clenched. Just listen to this garbage. Then she scrolled down to the comment section. It was worse than I imagined. Vile, venomous, overflowing with filth. Poor man stuck with a woman like her. Old witch trying to act young. No shame at all. Who leaves their family at that age just to attend those stupid dance classes? The few people who tried to defend me were instantly drowned in hate. One comment read, "Then I hope your mom turns out just like her." The deeper we scrolled, the uglier it got. Carol's hands trembled with rage as she handed me back my phone. "These people don't know a damn thing about you." I quickly opened my own dance video, went to the comment section. At the bottom, there were still a few warm words. Praise, encouragement, people cheering me on. But the further up I scrolled, the same hate had spilled over, people who'd followed the link from Laura's smear campaign, now using my post to spit their venom. "She's the one who should be sued." I snapped, my hands shaking with fury. "I'm going to press charges. She's the real homewrecker." I stood up so fast my chair nearly tipped. "I'm coming with you," Carol said firmly, rising beside me. Just as we were about to leave, my phone rang again. "Robert." I sighed and picked up, already bracing for another round of pathetic groveling. But this time, it wasn't his voice. It was Laura. Gone was the soft, gentle tone of a thoughtful other woman. She was seething now, her voice sharp and shrill. "Hey, old hag, what's going on between you and Robert?" she snapped. "He's been sending you flowers and sweet messages. What the hell are you two talking about? You think you can win him back?" Her voice grated like a rusty blade. "He says I'm the only one he loves, that you're just a leftover inconvenience, a prop to keep his son from cutting him off. So tell me, what is your relationship with him now? Say something." She didn't even pause to breathe, just kept firing accusations, a barrage of paranoid, venomous spite. Suddenly I laughed. I finally understood. This wasn't about love or justice. This was an emotion. It was jealousy, insecurity. She wasn't lashing out because she cared. She was terrified that I might still have some hold over Robert, that I might still have power she didn't. And that's what truly made her pathetic. Those two deserved each other. Shameless, self-absorbed, petty to the core. So this is your true face, I thought. The real woman behind the performance. Well, if she wanted a show, I'd give her one. Just before I hung up, I leaned into the speaker and shouted as loud as I could, "Tell that old bastard to go to hell." Then I ended the call. I tossed my phone into my bag and looked at Carol, my chest heaving. And then I smirked. "Well," I said, voice steady and sharp, "now I really feel alive." 2 more months passed. Out of the blue, Robert, who hadn't contacted me in days, called and said he wanted to move forward with the official divorce paperwork. I chuckled softly and replied, "I'm not ready to sign anymore. Not unless, on the day of our divorce, you stand outside City Hall in front of everyone and publicly apologize for all the damage you've caused me over the years. And you must also clear my name, Tell the truth about all those lies your so-called true love spread about me online. If you can't do that, then forget it. Don't even bring up divorce again." He lost his temper immediately, cursed at me, and slammed down the phone. I stared at the screen as the call disconnected, and my smile only deepened. That's fine. He'd come crawling back soon enough, because my plan had already been set in motion, quietly, carefully, and not a single one of them had any idea what was coming. Sure enough, 2 days later, he called again. This time, his voice was frantic and full of urgency. He agreed to everything. That's when I knew the time had come. Time to settle the score. Using the information Carol had gathered for me, I found Laura's contact number. I sent her a simple message. "Tomorrow, 3 p.m. meet me at City Hall. Let's clear the air face to face." The next morning, Robert showed up right on schedule, standing outside City Hall, just as I demanded. And in front of a growing crowd of bystanders, he did exactly what I told him to do. He apologized. He stood there, graying, wrinkled, humbled, and publicly confessed to the years of pain he'd caused me. He admitted to every act of betrayal. And most importantly, he clarified, loud and clear, that Laura's online smear campaign against me was nothing but slander and fabrication. People gathered around, curious and surprised. Phones came out. Videos were taken. Some clips were already making their way online within minutes. But Robert didn't care. It was as if he was in a trance, so desperate to get this over with, so desperate to wipe the slate clean. He didn't even flinch at the sight of cameras, didn't care that his pride was being stripped away, one sentence at a time. And when his performance was over, we walked into the building, side by side. Two people who had once built a life together, now calmly submitting our divorce application. No drama, no tears, just a final signature on a story that was long overdue for its ending. At exactly 3 p.m., the front steps of City Hall became a stage. A woman in a fitted red dress stood poised near the entrance, makeup flawless, posture radiating confidence, like a queen awaiting her coronation. Across from her, Laura stood stiffly, fidgeting with her purse, clearly anxious and uneasy. Then came Robert and I, arriving right on time. But he didn't spare Laura so much as a glance. Without hesitation, he walked straight toward the woman in red and took her hand in his with practiced ease and cold certainty. Laura's face went ghost white. Then, like something snapped in her mind, she lunged at him, grabbing his arm in desperation. But Robert yanked his arm away with a flick of disdain and walked forward with the red-dressed woman, not even bothering to look back. I followed them calmly, unfazed. After finalizing the paperwork, the clerk told us we'd need to return in a week to collect our official divorce certificate. As we stepped outside, Laura was still on the ground, sobbing, clutching her phone, half screaming into it while cursing through tears, completely unraveling in public. Robert didn't even blink. The woman beside him spared Laura a single, cool glance, then turned and walked off with him, heels clicking confidently across the pavement. I strolled over to Laura and stopped just in front of her. I gave her a smile, light, almost playful. "So, I heard you two were true love." Her expression twisted instantly, and she shrieked, lunging at me again in a fit of rage. But I was ready. I sidestepped smoothly, letting her stumble right past me without so much as brushing my coat. "Damn, did you see that move? This lady's got some real fire," a bystander shouted, sparking laughter and applause from the small crowd. I turned and gave them a wave, grinning. "Thanks." Then I walked away, graceful, unbothered, and gloriously free. Back home, I barely had time to sit down before the funeral service company called again, as they had so many times before. "Hello, ma'am," said the familiar voice on the other end, tone half amused, half defeated. "It's safe to say you really don't need our services after all." I laughed and hung up. Honestly, they weren't wrong. Maybe it was time to go back to the hospital, just to check in. I couldn't keep living like I was dying forever, could I? The next day I went in for a full medical examination, and the results stopped me in my tracks. The doctor sat across from me, flipping through the report with raised eyebrows, his voice filled with surprise and something like awe. "Madam," he said slowly, "your cancer cells are completely gone. No signs of metastasis. Nothing." I stared at him, stunned. "What do you mean?" "I healed. Like, completely." He nodded. Yes. You're in remission. Completely recovered. Recovered? But this kind of illness doesn't just go away, does it? The doctor gave a small shrug and smiled. It's rare, but it happens. Some patients experience what we call spontaneous remission. You're not the first. You can look it up. Medical journals are full of cases like this. Tears welled up in my eyes, not from sorrow, but from something far deeper, purer. Relief, gratitude, triumph. 1 year later, I've become something of a local celebrity, the cancer-surviving hip-hop grandma. It didn't take long for me to build a small following. People online started calling me Cool Susan, and somehow the name stuck. Life is bright now, vibrant, full of possibility. I often find myself standing in front of the mirror, tracing the lines time has etched into my face. But I no longer see flaws. I see stories. I see strength. Every wrinkle is a scar of survival, a reminder of everything I've fought through and grown from. I often say I spent most of my life trying to please others, and now, in the time I have left, I'm finally learning how to love myself. Because the answer to life was never just endure it. It's live it as yourself. I was once shackled by fate, but I found my own way to break free. I was once wounded by family, but I've learned how to forgive selectively and consciously. I once believed my life was nearing its end, but really, that was just the beginning of finally living. There are still so many days waiting for me. Days to dance, to explore, to live fiercely and fully. And as long as I'm still clapping for myself, I know the world will keep cheering for me too. This time, I've truly stepped into my own light. I am Susan. I am no one's shadow, no one's possession. I am simply, unapologetically me. And I love the woman I've become. I hope you enjoyed today's story. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories like this. Leave a like and comment below what you thought of the story. See you in the next video.